I mean, we talk about it a lot. Housing crisis, housing shortage. And it is a crisis. It's a crisis because no one in charge over the last 20 years bothered to do anything about it. Gave us the headlines and not the housing. So here we are, and it's not just a student or a housing crisis, but students can't find rentals. And the rentals they do find, very expensive. There's little choice. And if you do find something, you could find yourself living with 5 or 6 people in very cramped quarters. And bottom line is, it's going to get worse. The RBC just putting in a report saying by 2026, we're going to be short another 120,000 rental units, despite the fact that they're out there. Like, we know they're out there. So we've got a guy who's got a solution. We like solutions. Rylan Kinnon is a name founder and CEO of Spaces Shared. So good of you to come in and in person. So that gets you extra brownie points.
I'm glad. Thanks, Alex.
What is it that, and I know you've worked in government before, so you actually know the sausage, how it's made, the grossness of the sausage. And so how do we get to this place?
So I think we got to this place through a number of different ways. First of all, we don't have natural demographic growth in Canada, so we're bringing in a lot of newcomers. We're bringing in international students, who I think are one of the absolute best ways to bring in newcomers. They get a Canadian credential, they get connections to our communities. But the problem is we've promised them something, and they get here and they have a very different experience. And I think one of the biggest challenges is that the government has been funding post-secondary institutions at a per-student level at a declining rate over time. On top of that, the government froze domestic tuition and reduced it by 10% about 5 years ago. So we're now in a scenario where international students are essentially funding the majority of the post-secondary system. It's not the public, it's not domestic tuition dollars. And then, as you said, we haven't done what we need to do to ensure there's housing supply available. So what we think is really critical is don't just think about units, think about bedrooms. It's estimated there's 5 million empty bedrooms in Ontario, predominantly for Ontarians that are 65 plus.
Yeah.
So what Spaces Shared is aiming to do is we've created an intergenerational home sharing platform that makes it easy, safe, and secure for hosts to connect with students, students to connect with hosts. We vet who they are. We know who the host is. We know who the student is. We're there to help out.
So you're almost like a concierge.
It's a little bit like a concierge. What we're trying to do is acknowledge that you have all these older adults that have extra space. Acknowledge that we have challenges in taking care of older adults in Ontario. COVID laid that quite bare. And we think there's a great opportunity to connect older adults and students. And the older adult gets company. The older adult gets help around the home. The older adult gets extra income. The student gets a safe bedroom in what becomes a home. They build a connection.
Right. And so, look, I think there's a lot of people out there that say, well, look, I've got the space. My kids are gone. I got the space. Either I'm going to sell or...
Definitely.
It is out there, but I do think that there's also a real concern of who am I letting in the house? And so what kind of checks do you do? You're not going to ever be able to prevent everybody.
No.
But you know, if you're going to make something like this successful, it has to be built on trust. And so are you able to do criminal background checks? Are you able to run who these people are? Because if you can actually show that this is successful, and I do think it can be successful, I've got a little bit of space. I'd love to think that I could rent it out. But again, my mind goes to, who's in my home? I've got a young child and that kind of stuff. But, you know, if you can find those solutions, I do think these opportunities do open up.
So the key thing is trust. You hit the nail on the head, Alex. Our whole platform is based on trust. So first of all, you can't do anything on the platform if we don't know who you are. So you have to upload a piece of government-issued ID. We then compare that to your profile picture to make sure that you are who you say you are. If you're a host, we then require you to prove your address, either by giving us the driver's license to match the address or by other means. And the students, we check who they are. We require proof of first acceptance and then enrollment in the post-secondary institution, so we know that they actually are attending. And of course, we verify their ID. Before they enter into what we call a home share agreement, which is automated through the platform, they both have to complete a criminal background check. We have an automated process that gives us a response in 15 to 20 minutes. So as you said, this is about trust. So we don't disappear after the match gets made. We check in every month with the student and with the host. We ask, how's it going? Any challenges coming up? If challenges do come up, we call and say, hey, how can we help? You've lived with other people, Alex. You know, small things can become pretty major challenges over time.
I just kick them out.
Well, that's the risk.
That is the problem. Like, do you have it? But you know how renters, they've got a lot of rights. So if something goes wrong, are you able to get them out? Or do you have like what was that movie? That one where the roommate went nutty and couldn't get rid of her.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Back in the
those
day.
are scenarios that we don't envision happening. First of all, because we've done screening at the front end. But the other piece is it's home sharing. It's not a separate unit. So it doesn't actually fall under the tenant landlord board. Now, we still want to make sure that both students and hosts are well protected. And we want hosts to know what they're getting into, make sure they've thought through
Like
it, get to
billeting.
know them.
Remember back in the day,
Exactly.
billeting?
So this is not a new concept.
Yeah,
It
no.
truly is not a new concept, but we've stopped doing it. We've stopped making connections. And what we're trying to do is make it really easy for you to leverage your spare room for extra income, support, and company.
Do you have a database where people can register? Because you got to. I mean, you
Yes, we
suggest
do.
that you have 5 million units. So where do those people who say, well, maybe I can rent this out? Where's the database?
So they can go to www.spacesshared.ca and sign up as a host. And if they have any questions, they can reach out by phone, by email, or through the platform. It's a matching platform. So we ask you a lot of questions about what do you do in your home? What do you hope that your guest is going to do in your home? Similarly, we ask the guest, what do you do in a home? What do you hope your host looks like? We're trying to get folks in the ballpark, and then we connect them. We give them a discussion guide to make sure they ask the right questions about what it's like to live with each other. And then we help them through the process of entering to that home share agreement. So it's kind of like a match of a listing service and even a dating service, because the reality is you're living with someone. You need to connect to them. You need to want the amenities and the location of the home, but you also need to want to spend time with that person and feel some form of connection.
Albeit, yeah. I mean, you don't have to have a relationship with this person. It
You
can
don't
be like,
have
look,
to.
I do my own thing. You do
You
your own thing.
definitely don't have to. Like two introverts can come together and be ships passing in the night.
Like the odd couple.
Exactly. Or two freakish extroverts like me can get together. They can talk. They can connect. They can share knowledge. One of the things that really excites us, Alex, is we match based on the host's career and where they studied and what the student is studying. So we have the opportunity to connect a nursing student with a retired or an active nurse.
Because then you get like building networking.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting idea.
Exactly.
How did you come up with this? Just based on your knowledge from working behind the scenes?
Part of it was I also was supporting a consultation process on student mental health for one of the post-secondary advocacy organizations in Ontario. And what I heard from student leaders across the province is they want opportunities to find safe and affordable housing. And they said, you know what? Don't talk to me about therapeutic approaches to mental health because you can't counsel me out of food insecurity. You can't counsel me out of economic insecurity. You can't counsel me out of housing insecurity. And so I started to think, well, what can be done? Life is expensive for everyone.
We share our cars with like Airbnb or Uber and that. So this almost is like, yet another.
Exactly.
Okay. And what kind of success? Like, where are you at in the process as far
So
as?
we recently launched with Humber College last week.
Yeah. So you really need the universities and the colleges almost on board to say, hey, sorry,
Exactly.
here's another option. Okay.
Exactly. And we launched with Georgian College. We're about to start making matches in Barrie. We hope to be making matches in Toronto this upcoming summer. And we're really excited about it because there's huge need on older adults' parts. There's huge need on students' parts. And what we are hoping for is community organizations to also come along with us. This is an opportunity to build community. This is an opportunity to connect people who are disconnected.
It's a solution.
Exactly.
I like that. All right. Well,
thank
look,
you.
it's a great idea. I just kind of, as I'm going through it in my head, it is a really, if you can make this work and pair up people, I think it could be a real game changer. So I appreciate it. We come back and tell us how it's going.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thank you. That's Rylan Kinnon. And the company is Spaces Shared. So if you want to go online, you can actually check it out. Maybe you have an extra space. And if this is for you, it could be actually a real opportunity on both sides. So I do think it's an interesting solution. I like solutions. We have too many problems. Solutions.
There are stories that grab the whole world's attention. But what happens when the cameras turn off and news stories take over the headlines? I'm Global News reporter Erica Vella, and this season on my podcast, What Happened To, we're covering some of the most gripping stories from the past few years and talk to people at the heart of every one. So join me on Global News What Happened To, available now for free wherever you find your favorite podcasts.